Dawnbringer, Book 4, Chapter 9, On the Road to Conflict. When all the able-bodied fighters have been gathered in the city of Onilandon, they stand 4,000 in number. 1,500 of these are trained warriors, guardsmen and soldiers, and the rest are simply townsfolk who have volunteered to lend their arm to the cause. Brima refuses to draft any of the men of his city unwillingly into the force that shall march toward Minstead, but neither does he refuse those who freely offer their assistance. And without the aid of these latter, there would be little hope of any sort of victory against the enemy, however meagre. But after having witnessed the assault of their own city and the horrors of the creatures that seek to destroy their people, many are stirred to resist, some by remaining at home to guard and protect their families and their city, and others to march forth for the deliverance of Minstead and for the direct conflict with the full might of the enemy, even if this proves to be little more than a diversion to save other settlements from a similar fate. R'hllane hesitantly but confidently accepts second in command over the army, with Senfir, with the death of Hending, now raised to the status of commander. Brima himself dons a mail hauberk and iron breastplate with matching greaves and vambraces, and a thick-bladed sword passed down to the leaders of the clan of Onilandis, and joins the army, as do 4 others of the members of the council. Yatilda takes Brima's place as the prime custodian of the city and the clan in his absence. Gathering outside the city gates on the early morning, 2 days after the departure of Eldarion and Elmarie, the host is massive and intimidating to behold, though to them, of course, encouraging. With armor glinting in the torchlight as far as the eye can see, a great horde emerging from the darkness. They know not whether the Ertenga can see in the darkness as in daylight, or even if they see at all in the ordinary manner. But for those who behold the army now, the darkness seems almost to be in this case a boon, an aid to the secrecy of their march, and an advantage in their approach to the city of Minstead. Like a wave at sea, rising up and crashing against the shore without warning in the depths of night. This at least is their hope. Along with the men who march for war are 500 others, mainly women, though there are also a number of elderly men who accompany them to tend to their needs and to support them in whatever manner they may. Among these are Syrian and Tiliana, for whom the possibility of remaining in Onilandon is not even a consideration. Though they have nothing to offer in terms of military strength or acumen, they both wish to be where the conflict is, that they may aid those who stand forefront against the darkness. Whether it shall be cooking meals, helping with camp, tending to the wounded, or offering counsel and presence, there they want to be, and they also do not wish to allow R'hllane to press forward alone without their support and their companionship, for the burden he now carries is great. When all have gathered and are prepared to depart, Senfir speaks. He addresses the troops in a loud voice, reaching whom he may, while others pass on his words to those too distant to hear him.
We have a long road ahead of us, and our destination shall be more dangerous and more arduous than the road to get there. but we march in courage and in compassion, to save and to protect the people of our land, both in Onalandis and beyond. Much shall be asked of us in the coming days, but I am confident that we shall rise to the occasion, as we have once already. So prepare yourselves. Much need have we of haste, and we shall march hard. Let your legs be tireless and your arm be strong, and let your heart not fail, come what may. For we are Telmarans, and our spirit shall not be broken.
After these words, the great company sets out, following the plains and foothills to the west and then the northwest, as its leaders guide all steps toward a narrow pass that cuts through a branch of the Teldrans, and which shall spare a large number of days, perhaps even a whole week from their journey. For the three companions who have journeyed from Ristfand, the experience of traveling in such a large group of people is a jarring change, as the sobriety of the days and the silent intimacy of the nights is replaced by numerous sounds, whether the dull pounding of thousands of footsteps and the breath of many human beings alike, a cadence resounding on and on as the long hours of marching wear on, or whether the sounds of hushed conversation at night and snoring, and campfires crackling to fight away the darkness and the bitter chill. Fortunately, they pass through the mountains without incident and find the land sloping downward on the other side, and a wide expanse opening out before them, more felt than seen, which shall take many further days to cross. But across it, far to the north, lies their goal, one both desired and feared, the city of Minstead, cradled in a wide basin of land between rugged peaks, centre of the clan of Mineas and heart of conflict now for years. But the nature of this conflict has now drastically changed, and what was once the fight between empire and rebellion has now become the struggle of humanity for life and survival against the beasts of darkness and death who would rob them of it.
I feel their fear.
Rorlane remarks one day to Syrian as the company stops to make camp.
They have witnessed incredible horror already in the heart of their own city, once a bastion of such safety and security. And yet, within only a matter of weeks, they march forth toward another city, foreign and unknown, and to face what for all indication shall be a yet greater force of evil. The fear of death hangs heavy in the air, and rightly so. I myself fear that many shall fall before the end, if not all.
Nodding to these words as he receives them with both mind and heart, Syrian replies,
"A painful path has befallen us, that is certain. Our people face a trial they have not known for ages, and for all that we would wish to spare them of it, all that we can do, rather, is join them in it and guide them as best we can along the journey that lies before them.
And in the conflict be a shield to protect them and a sword to sharpen them. A sword imbued with light, which seems to be our only advantage, and one that seems to me so small and meagre against our enemy."
Do you have any hesitations about the path that we have chosen?
Syrian asks.
About the assault on Minstead?
I suppose so, yes.
Says Syrian.
The journey that Eldarion and Elmarie take is not one subject to choice, as it seems to have been chosen for them. But before us lies a conflict uncertain both in nature and in outcome. Do you believe that we have chosen wisely?
I really do not know, but we have chosen, and we have chosen together. All that is for it now is to follow this course through to its end, or until something else is suggested to us.
For my part, I believe that we have chosen wisely.
Truly.
Rorlane looks at Syrian inquisitively, surprised at the firmness of his words.
Yes, truly. The decision that the Council has made is one born both of courage and of the willingness to stand directly against the evil rather than to flee from it or to compromise with it. How easy it would have been for them to choose instead to look after their own interests, to build of safeguards to protect themselves and their own, hoping to last through these dark days.
But that would have been folly, for unless the darkness is stopped, it shall only continue to spread.
Assuredly, but they could have done so nonetheless. And if the journey of our two friends brings any small hope of deliverance, they could have used this to their advantage and refrained from risking further loss for their people and their clan.
But ever since our arrival in Onilanden,
says Rawlane,
their response has been on the large one of generosity and trust.
Yes, and I shall never cease to marvel at that fact, for I find it quite astonishing as well as consoling.
With these words, Sirion's eyes sparkle, and his face seems to smile, even though only a slight change comes to the curve of his lips or his brows.
I have not paid as much attention to it as it deserves,
admits Rawlane.
Truly I realize that I took it too much for granted. But you are right. There is great hope in the people of Onilanden.
Then he pauses and lowers his eyes in grief, concluding,
Yet that realization only makes me want more desperately to save them from the pain that awaits them.
And so their march continues as the mountains fall away behind them, though remaining constant far to their right, to the east, whence lies the Teldren Range, silhouetted in the darkness. They move deeper with every passing day into the heart of the plains of Paralis, a vast expanse of land that extends over a great portion of the western regions of Telmerion, from the Finistra Range far in the north to the Midfeld stretch in the south, through which they have just passed, an offshoot of the Teldren Mountains as they extend to the southwest toward the dual peninsulas of Fenris and Galarian. Little of these plains are visible to the eye, of course, since all is bathed in perpetual night, but they are able to glean impressions of a wide land that is largely flat, though punctuated often with undulating hills or shelves of stone and earth on which grow hardy grasses and other plants. The trees are sparse and yet large and ancient, and when the company passes by them, the sense of their massive size is tangible, both intimidating and consoling, each in their own way. There are also numerous streams of water, most hardly wider than a few feet, though some up to 10 feet, across which they must pass. The more shallow beds of water are frozen solid, while the others conceal water still flowing, hidden underneath 12 to 16 inches of ice. When the company stops near one of these larger streams, a good number of the men take the opportunity to break through the ice, enough to draw forth water in buckets or flasks and to replenish the supply of the travellers. But only a few days into their trek across the plains, the weather turns, and a cold and biting wind sweeps unhindered across the land. Light flurries of snow accompany them intermittently for the larger part of 2 days, and yet this never intensifies into anything more serious, though they suspect it shall do so further to the east or to the south, if not broken up in crossing the Teldren Mountains. As they continue northward, accompanying the people of Onilanden across the plains toward the conflict that awaits them, 2 conversations in particular impress upon the companions both the valor and the fear of their people. One is a conversation that Rawlane has with a young man who volunteered to take up arms with his compatriots, and the other is a conversation shared by Tiliana and an elderly woman accompanying the caravan, a conversation to which Sirion is witness. The first occurs several hours after the company has set up camp, while most sleep, recuperating their energy for the next day's journey. Rawlane walks the perimeter of the camp slowly, lost in thought, having just awoken from a dream-filled slumber, and finding himself incapable of sinking back into sleep. He comes upon the young man, set for the first night watch of the southwest perimeter of the camp, standing unmoving in the darkness, his arms crossed upon his breast and clasping his cloak tight around his body.
How goes the watch?
Rollane asks as he draws near, in order not to startle the young man. Coming closer, he sees more clearly the features of the youth, and the person he assumed was a man of perhaps his early or mid-20s appears instead to be a teenager.
Captain Frail, is that you? Why come you to the watch?
The man asks in response, the discomfort at speaking directly to a superior officer evident in his voice.
At ease.
Rollane says kindly, stepping to the man's side.
What is your name?
I am called Ilthus, sir. Ilthus, son of Mendelian, though my father died in the assault on Onilandon.
I am sorry to hear of your loss, Ilthus, son of Mendelian. You have my condolences and my prayers for your father,
says Rollane.
Too many have fallen already at the hands of these forces of darkness.
Indeed,
sighs Ilthus, unconsciously lowering his head in grief. But only a moment later, he raises it again and risks a glance at Rollane, saying,
Yet that is why we march, is it not? We must put a stop to this madness before any more innocent lives are lost.
That is exactly why we march,
answers Rollane.
Did you join the fighting company for this reason?
Yes, Sir Frail, for that and none other.
Please call me Rollane.
Rollane? Ah, very well.
I am impressed with your courage, Ilthus, and grateful for it. You are young, and yet you step willingly into a place of great danger, stirred by love of your people.
If a young man shall not be courageous, why would we expect an older man to be?
Ilthus asks, though it is clear the question is rhetorical.
The boy is the seed of the man,
remarks Rollane.
You're right, and you speak more wisely than many twice your age. If only men would recognize that even their adult manhood is still growing, still being called forth unto maturation, and yet that this maturation in large part consists in a rediscovery of the vigor and wonder, the newness and awe of youth, then our world would be a better and more courageous place.
Perhaps,
the young soldier comments.
But I look forward to being a man.
A man you are already, Ilthus. It is courage and integrity that make you a man, and standing up for right and good and innocence. From this, all other maturation shall flow.
You are right,
responds Ilthus.
I just don't feel ready to be a man.
None of us do. That is perhaps part of the mystery of life, that the very gift of our existence, of who we are in the midst of this world, is both ours and yet also ever so far beyond us. Only in knowing that can you discover true strength greater than the measure of man, though alive in man.
Ilthus does not immediately respond, but it is evident that he is reflecting on these words in silence. When at last he speaks, he does not respond directly to Rollane's words, but the latter knows that he has listened to them deeply and shall hold them in the thought and reflection of the heart. Speaking, Ilthus' voice is strained.
Ma, she is still in Onilandon. I wanted to stay and protect her, to grieve the loss of Ta with her, but I knew I couldn't. I knew I had to march with the company.
A great sacrifice you have made.
There was no other way.
But you made it nonetheless. And may you behold the fruit of this sacrifice, and again look upon your mother's face, and upon the face of the many people you shall know and love throughout your life after these days of darkness have passed.
You really think there is hope for such a thing?
Ilthus asks, turning now to face Rollane directly, the intensity of his question harnessing the fullness of his attention. Rollane's response is confident and yet simple.
There is always hope, Ilthus. Never cease to believe that love is greater than hatred and light stronger than darkness.
The second conversation occurs a couple days after the prior, as the company walks together across the plains in the darkness of midday. Tiliana finds herself in the midst of a group of women, young and old alike, and she cannot help overhearing the conversation that unfolds as they walk. It is a long one, for a few of the women are quite loquacious. Yet it is not the length that pains Tiliana, but the content. They speak of the promise and the rumor of the scarred king, and though Tiliana can tolerate their disagreement and dismissal, she is hurt deeply through their disrespect, a disrespect bordering on blasphemy. But shy and quiet as she is, she finds it difficult to voice her concerns. It takes her a couple minutes to work up the courage to say something, but just as she opens her mouth to speak, another woman near to her, the oldest of the group, speaks instead.
I have had enough of your crude language, ladies.
The age shows in her voice, and this makes her interlocutors smirk.
Ladies? Why do you call us ladies?
One of the more boisterous women retorts.
You don't want to be ladies, do you? Well, you aren't acting like ladies, so I suppose it was wrong of me to address you as such.
Do you have something more that you want to say, or do you simply want to insult us?
Replies another woman.
I have no intent to insult any of you,
Says the first woman.
but whether you use language well or poorly, it must be pointed out that what you say goes against both the intelligence of the mind as well as the memory and hope of our people. You call these prophecies of a promised king a silly tale, fitting only for the youngest of children, and you scoff at the fact that one has arisen among us who claims to be that king, and who bears both the semblance and the power to back up his claim. The least you can do is speak your unwillingness to believe with the reserve fitting to the seriousness of the matter, rather than making a joke of a reality that our people hold so precious and so dear.
Are you saying that you believe in these so-called prophecies?
Asks the woman who has been at the forefront of the mockery.
And you believe that power has truly arisen among us?
Shaking her head sorrowfully, the elderly woman, after a moment either to collect her thoughts or to make sure her words are received in the silence that is their due, Tiliana suspects that it is the latter, says,
I have believed in the promises since I was a young child, and yet the hope, indeed the conviction of their truth, has not lessened with me as I have grown and advanced in years. Rather, the surety in my heart has only deepened, and I know that I am not alone in this hope and this longing. At first I believed in the scarred king because the whole world was bathed in beauty and wonder, because all things were a marvel, and my heart knew that a promised king who would be the deliverance and salvation of our people would be the greatest marvel of all. And yet, as I grew older, I came to believe in the scarred king because the world was marked by suffering and pain, by loss and sorrow. I knew that if there ever was to be a king who would lead the people of Telmerian unto healing and life, it would be one who was scarred, who bore the marks of suffering and of love in his own flesh.
The intensity and the passion in these words, along with the mysterious logic present within them, leaves the other women for a few moments fumbling for an answer. Eventually, they do what so often happens in such situations. They turn away from the woman who has spoken and resolve henceforth to ignore her, returning to the same manner of speech that had stirred her to intervene in the first place. But she has spoken, and for Tiliana that is enough. When the company stops at the end of the day, Tiliana approaches the woman and, reaching out to grasp her hand, says,
I wanted to introduce myself and to say thank you for your words earlier. I was about to speak myself, but was struggling to muster the courage to do so.
I know, dear, that is why I spoke.
Replies the woman simply.
Such blindness and disrespect thrives when people who see more deeply choose to remain silent. Anyway, darling, by what name are you called?
Tiliana laughs softly and replies,
Darling is as good a name as any, or perhaps even the best by a large margin. But I am called Tiliana Valesa, a widow from Ristfand. What is your name?
So you know the pain of which I speak, do you? That explains much. My name is Elandra Mistray.
It is a pleasure to meet you, Elandra.
Likewise.
You speak of my pain,
Tiliana continues hesitantly.
But those women surely know pain too, do they not? Even if they had little taste of it before now, how can they remain so light-hearted after all that has just happened in their own city?
Light-hearted?
Elandra asks, raising her eyebrows.
No, I do not think that they are light-hearted. Quite the opposite. They are coping with pain and loss in their own way, even if what they are doing is yet hurting them still further. It is the heavy heart that cries out in cynical mockery, that scoffs and belittles, that makes jokes at others' expense. Such is the very opposite of true humour and authentic lightness of heart. Only the heart that looks through the darkness and pain and finds hope for light beyond can be a heart that is light. I remember one of my teachers when I was but a child. He taught me a lesson that had a profound impact on me. This man, now long deceased, was an expert in the old language, so marvellous and yet so much forgotten. Or at least I think it is marvellous. But that may be because in it alone have I read pages of deepest beauty. We simply do not write like that anymore, having forgotten so many beautiful and painful parts of our history. Would you like to hear what he told me?
I most certainly would.
Replies Tiliana, wonder in her eyes at the beauty of Elandra, who, as she speaks, seemed to light up with some secret lamp of the spirit hidden deep within.
Very well then. Though now it won't seem like much since I have prefaced it so. For it is really quite simple. He explained to me how two words in the ancient language have the same root, and were perhaps originally the same word, but came to have different meanings over time. One is the word illo, and the other is the word allo. Now, illo means light, as in the light that shines and that we see with our eyes. A singing sunrise or a sparkling sunset, a mellow midday or a melodious morning.
She pauses for a second to savour her own alliterations and to chuckle softly at them, and then she continues.
Of course, illo also refers metaphorically to the invisible light, the light of goodness that stands over and against the darkness of evil. We sure know enough about that nowadays, don't we? And now you see, too, why what our friends were saying earlier in their crude comments was so inappropriate. We would all be dead right now were it not for the light. Anyway, let me return to the lesson. The other word, allo, means light in another sense. Light in reference to weight, the opposite of heaviness, like a floating feather, or a whistling wind, or a humble heart. Of course, that last one is metaphorical. But that makes precisely the point. We pass from the visible to the invisible almost instantaneously and without thought. It's just the way we were made. And so it is fitting that illo and allo refer to the same thing, or to aspects of the same thing, to the light that makes us light, and to the lightness that allows us to be docile and receptive to the light.
In response to this, all that Tiliana can do is smile and express her gratitude for the woman's words, in a way both subtle and unexpected, have touched a dark and heavy place somewhere deep within her, and have helped in some measure to ease it and bring it a touch of lightness.